Melisa Liebenthal. So first of all, thank you so much for the movie. It's such a great film, and it didn't take us long to decide that we would like to have the film included in our program. I think it's a perfect fit for the forum, and it brings up so many relevant questions. At the same time, it's full of humor and absurd situations that make it more light-hearted to watch, and that's also important. We can't only show sinister and dark and serious films. So you are from Buenos Aires. You did already a couple of movies. Your first film was a feature film called Las Lindas, The Pretty Ones, in 2016. Then you did 2 other movies following Constanza and Aquí and Allá, Here and There, 2019, and now you come here with your second feature film, which is also your first fiction film. There is a continuity in your films, especially if you look at Las Lindas. Your first feature film was a film that reflected on the relationship of young teenage girls on how their appearance, looking at their face, how they would project themselves, and looking close also at the construction of femininity, and using images from your own childhood, interviewing friends. This was more like a documentary format. And now you always work using materials that come from your own family, be it like your house, or you have pictures of your family, or yourself. I mean, even here in the movie, you are the face of the real Marina, and so you work with pre-existing documentary materials, images from your own family, as I said, and here you had a lot of documentary footage taken from your different visits to zoos, and it's funny because we are here in the Zoopalast next to the zoo, so I think it's a really fitting venue for showing your film here in Berlin. But the thing that is new here is that you incorporate the documentary materials, the archival footage, into a narrative structure. So my question to start with would be, what came first? Did you imagine the story of someone who loses her face and has to deal with that situation, or did you start with your fascination for zoos, and especially the how to look at animals and the way the animals look back, and then you had to figure out how to build this in a feature film? How did it start?
Thank you. Actually, no. It started with the animals. It started with the animals with a very broad curiosity for our relation to animals. So I wanted to investigate that. I had questions about our fascination for animals. I love animals. I don't know. I think many people do. And I wanted to research, to investigate around that fascination. What is there? What is it when we look at an animal? And then, of course, there's this text by John Berger, Why Look at Animals? Is that so? And then I only had that. Okay, what happens with animals, with us, human animals, and the other animals? And so I started. My investigation is in zoos, because of course, we don't have many other. Me as a person who lives in a city, there's not many other places where I can encounter wildlife. And this is also John Berger. He says, our relationship in cities with animals is in 3 ways: whether they're in zoos, they are pets, or they are pests. Like pigeons, rats, cockroaches. So I went for zoos, and and there I was going with my small camera and my sound recorder and just trying to see what I found. It's a very open investigation. And what caught my attention after visiting, no, from the first two, what caught my attention was, how we wanted so intensively, almost desperately, to be seen by the animal, to encounter the gaze, like to the animal looking at you, and then having these crossing glances. And then that was it for me. I'm like, okay, for me, this is what there is, this face-to-face encounter, and with this radical foreignness, this radical otherness. So that was for me what moved me for the project. I mean, that for me is like the core, conceptual of the project. And and then of course the flip side came pretty quickly with animals that don't have a face. So then it was like, okay, what happens when there is no face, there is no eyes to encounter? How do we connect with that? Can we even connect? How do we do that? And then, okay, so what is a face? What is the meaning of a face? What's the weight of a face? Why do we need a face? And also, why is it so linked to our identity? So a lot of questions, mostly very philosophical, and I felt they were too big for me. I was a bit overwhelmed by them. I didn't know how to approach it in a film also. It was like, okay, I should write an essay, but I'm not equipped for that either. Like a thesis, I don't know. So then, also pretty quickly I felt, okay, I would like to explore this also through a different way that is not only, documentary and essay, which is more where I had always worked, voiceover, and I felt, I wanted to try to work with fiction, with narrative, because it's something I also like a lot. I really love stories and characters and following a character and what happens to a character, and I wanted to do that. And I felt it was a good way also to get out of this hardcore abstraction. It was a good way to, okay, let's put this in a body, let's put this in a personal story, a character, a woman, and what she's going through. But the story of her changing face is very absurd and fantastic almost thing. It came I would say, after 2-3 years of working around the project. First I was alone trying to write a script. It was very hard for me. I am not a script writer, and I found it really, really hard, almost impossible. So I had a first script, it sucked, it was really bad. It was, I had a character, but nothing happened to her. It was just a woman, dilettante, just very existential, it was just boring. And so I started working with a co-writer, with a script writer. And at some point he came up with that idea, and I'm like, of course, let's do it. I felt, and then thinking about it more rationally, it felt like it was great because it could really embody the questions of the importance of a face. If the face of the protagonist changes, then she's faced with a lot of questions about that. So it made a lot of sense, and it was fun. It was funny, and so that was a bit how it went, the process. Mm-hmm.
And one thing, the movie starts with a quote by Rilke, but then also, we can get back to that later. But the story itself, think of, there's a literary tradition. Of course, there's Kafka, but also in Argentina, you have this literary tradition of fantastic writing, like Bioy Casares, Cortázar, even more recently César Aira. How much did literature influence your work, or generally? Is there?
Not directly. It wasn't something I thought about. In general, I don't work so much with references. I'm pretty bad at thinking about references, or how do I want my film to look like or to be like. I'm really bad at that. So yeah, I mean, I read. I know all these authors. I like them. Cesar Aira, yeah, I loved him. But no, I mean, no, it wasn't directly. And Kafka, honestly, I think. I mean, of course, I know the Metamorphose, but I think it. Yeah, I don't know. I never even discussed it with my scriptwriter. And the Quote by Rilke, well, that one, yeah, that was something, a material I found very early in the I don't know how to say, in the origin of the project. I don't remember how I bumped into this poem, but it was very enlightening for me, because I felt it. Yeah, it condensed these feelings for. I identified on how it talked about the look of the animal versus our look that is returned to itself. I mean, it's a pretty complex poem. I don't even know if I get it, but I liked. There are two sentences there that for me mean a lot. Like the first one, I don't think I can say it in English. I know it in Spanish. Like the creature gazes in the openness with all its eyes, something like that. And solo sabemos lo que. We only know what is outside by the animal's face. These two things were this is it. This is for me. And then I forgot about that poem for some years. I mean, I started this project in 2016. Of course, other things happened in the middle. I made 2 short films, but that project was always there. And then, one of the last weeks of editing. One of the last weeks of editing, I remembered this poem, and I felt it was good to include it, because at least to give another clue on, what I wanted the viewer to, even if it's not super straightforward. But I don't know. I felt okay. It's there. The sentences are there, and you can take it if you want.
For a moment to be not recognizable, but but visit the places that you know, but with a different face, so that no one, and you as a audience, you watch with a really pleasurable thrill how she sneaks into the classroom and pretends to be a student, and then even end up having a love affair with one of the fellow students. But at the same time, you have the fear as well of, if you lose your face, you can fall off the grid, because, for instance, you cannot prove your identity. I had an experience many years ago. I chopped the tip of my thumb with an axe, chopping wood, and of course the healing process takes a while, but then the fingerprint is altered, no? And I was supposed to go to the US, and all of a sudden I was freaking out, because I thought, no, the immigration, they will not let me through, because my fingerprint doesn't fit what they record. Anyway, so there are all these elements. When you developed the film, did you had already in mind to have so many different genres in the film, to narrate the film, or narrate the story, and then adding to that, the actress that you chose she's amazing, because she's the face of the film, but she also, through her face, really expresses all different emotions. I mean, she's a perfect. You found the perfect person for the role.
Yeah, thank you. No, she's great. So the question was, if I, since the beginning. Yeah, I mean, as I said before, I started the project with the documentary footage from zoos that were investigation footage, right? So I had that, dozens of hours of that, and then this idea of working with fiction. So we started doing that with a script, like a proper fiction script and blah. And and I also had I don't know why, I had this passage, these interventions of what we called the essay part, so in the film, I guess you can put in that box all the sequences that are like collage, animation. For me, I consider those like more like plastic experimentations with image that don't respond to any narrative need, and they don't respond to any like register of reality or like commitment to reality or anything. They're just pure like visual creations. For me, closer to the process of visual arts, maybe. Even though I'm not a visual artist and don't consider myself that, but it's a type of approach to materials that I enjoy a lot. So yeah, from the beginning, we knew the film was a patchwork, and it was a patchwork from many, many different materials that are, and it was super hard, super challenging because they are produced in different ways. They are, and they demand you different ways of thinking. Like the needs of a fiction are very different from the needs of these experimental passages and the needs of a documentary. So it was like this three-headed monster, the film, requiring to go from one thing to another and different ways of working. So it was pretty tough to do that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have an explanation for that. It's just how it happened. And yeah, I think some parts of how one makes a film is so intuitive. It's like what you like, or I don't know. It just comes out in a certain way. And yeah, regarding what you said about identity, yeah, this was also a very important idea or feeling I had. Some kind of trying to remove weight from identity. You know, like I think we are so concerned with our identity, and it's so important. And at some point, I think it can have this weight, and like we wanted to play a bit with saying, look, it's not that important, you know. It's not that important, your identity, who you are. I mean, this person changes faces. Is she the same person? Is she not? I mean, just trying to play with that, and definitely the liberating power of like in a way not being anyone, even if shortly, because then even if she can play with anonymity for a brief moment, then the new face starts to create a new history immediately, because I mean, okay, maybe for 1-2 days no one knows, but then they start to know. So that also, it had short legs in a way, but yeah, that for me is also the power of the power of the jellyfish, you know, the power of the no face. It's a bit destructive in something like, okay, then it's like, yeah, the power of nothingness, kind of the kind of destruction of ego, I don't know, destruction of the first person, destruction of the I, of the self. But I found that it was something a bit liberating in that to just, okay, for one moment just forget, get out of your own self and all that.